So you break an arm, right? You go to the doctor, an x-ray shows that, like jagged white line, and the doctor just points and says, yep, there it is.
Right, there's the proof.
Exactly.
Wow.
You get a cast, you get a timeline, and you get a cure. It's totally binary. Broken or not broken.
Yeah, and we naturally gravitate toward that. I mean, we love things that can be seen, instantly categorized, and actively fixed.
We really do. But what happens when the disorder doesn't cast a shadow on an x-ray? Like, what happens when you're dealing with this, biological firewall around food that you've been hitting every single day for 27 years?
That's the core of what we're looking at today.
Yeah, so welcome to this deep dive. Whether you're diving into this to better understand a loved one, or maybe you're just insanely curious about radical shifts and health perspectives, we're glad you're here. Today's source material is this striking, deeply personal manifesto centered on ARFID.
Right, avoidant restrictive food intake disorder.
Exactly. And the project is titled The Reality of 27 Years. And the mission of our deep dive today is to really unpack this because, honestly, it proposes a massive, radical shift in how we view mental and physical endurance.
It really does. Because, the traditional medical community, and really society at large, typically frames a decades-long struggle with something like AR-Conthali as a chronic failure.
Like an error in the human machine.
Exactly. The narrative is relentlessly focused on fixing the individual, curing the disorder, and forcing this return to a societal baseline of normal.
Which is exhausting just to think about.
Totally. But this manifesto takes that entire framework and just dismantles it. It argues that surviving for nearly 3 decades in a world and a medical system that is fundamentally hostile to your neurology isn't a mistake to be corrected.
Wow.
Yeah, it's actually a towering achievement.
That shift in perspective completely changes the atmosphere of the whole conversation. We're moving completely away from these heavy-handed ideas of forced growth or, pushing exposure therapy on people who are really just trying to survive.
Right. It's about the profound relief of simply being seen.
Yeah, highly empathetic, highly validating. But to grasp why this new perspective is so necessary, we first have to look at what it's rebelling against, right?
We do,
Yeah.
which the manifesto lays out in what it calls Angle 4, system versus system.
System versus system. So break that down for us.
So imagine enduring 27 years of what the author terms forced optimism from medical practitioners. The traditional clinical model is built entirely around, the mechanics of progress.
Which means constantly pushing the person to challenge themselves.
Exactly. Step out of your comfort zone, grow. And historically, the approach to eating disorders has often been highly behavioral, focused on compliance, expanding the palate, measurable intake.
Okay, wait, let's unpack this for a second. Because we are usually taught that a doctor's optimism is a good thing,
Oh, for sure. Bedside manner and all that.
Right. Hope is supposed to be the cornerstone of medicine. Why is this manifesto treating a doctor's encouragement like it's a weapon?
Well, it comes down to the fundamental mechanism of ARFD. We're not talking about a picky eater who just needs a little encouragement to, try broccoli.
Okay.
We're talking about a genuine neurological and physiological barricade. Think of it like a biological software firewall.
A firewall. Okay.
Yeah, so the brain's security system misidentifies a totally harmless strawberry, or maybe a specific texture, as catastrophic malware.
Oh, wow. So it just instantly blocks the download.
Exactly. So when the medical system meets that deeply embedded biological firewall with relentless, chipper demands to just, try a little bite.
It creates this profound dissonance.
Yes, completely.
It totally invalidates the reality of the firewall. Reading this, it felt like being handed a very detailed, enthusiastic manual for a sports car, but you're actually operating a submarine.
That is a perfect analogy.
Right. And when your machine obviously doesn't work on the highway, the mechanic doesn't change the manual. They just brightly smile and tell you to try harder.
Right, just push the gas pedal more.
Exactly. And that relentless positivity actually mutates into a form of intense psychological pressure, doesn't it?
It really does. The system basically demands that the individual's internal nervous system change to fit the external medical model.
Which is impossible.
Right. And that constant demand to override your own biology year after year for nearly 3 decades, that generates a very unique kind of trauma.
I can't even imagine. So what system versus system is really arguing for is dismantling that forced optimism.
Yes. It's a call to finally protect the individual's internal system from the constant barrage of being told their survival tactics just aren't good enough.
Which makes total sense. If the clinical establishment keeps handing you the wrong instruction manual, eventually you just have to write your own.
You really do.
You're left to figure out how to engineer your own safety in a world that's full of triggers. And the source material actually breaks down how this agency is reclaimed in daily life through angles 2 and 3.
Right, which focus heavily on the physical environment.
Yeah, angle 2 explores the immense power of surroundings. And this was wild to me.
It is wild because, people who don't experience sensory processing issues, or ARFID, they tend to think of eating disorders purely in terms of the food itself.
Like the texture, the taste, the smell on the plate.
Exactly. But the manifesto highlights a radically different reality, which is that the environment actually dictates the biological ability to consume.
Wait, okay. So factors that seem totally disconnected to an outsider, like ambient noise in a room.
Yes, or the specific frequency of fluorescent lighting,
Oh, yeah.
or even just the proximity of other people.
Yeah.
All of that exerts massive power over the digestive process.
Let's dig into the biology of that because it sounds crazy at first. How does a buzzing light bulb actually stop someone from eating?
Well, it all comes back to the autonomic nervous system. You've got your sympathetic nervous system, right? Which is your fight or flight response.
Right, the survival mode.
Exactly. And then the parasympathetic nervous system, which governs rest and digest.
Rest and digest. Okay.
So for someone with ARFID, their sensory processing is often just dialed up to 11. If a room is too loud, or those fluorescent lights are flickering at a harsh frequency,
The brain perceives that sensory input as an active threat.
yes, it triggers the sympathetic nervous system. And when you're in fight or flight mode, your body literally shuts down the digestive tract.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Blood is routed to the muscles so you can escape the threat.
Because digestion is the absolute last thing your brain is going to prioritize if it thinks you're under attack by the lighting in the room.
Precisely. It's sensory overload acting as a physical barricade to eating.
That completely reframes the experience. It's not anxiety about the food itself. It's the body prioritizing immediate survival over caloric intake.
Right. And recognizing that biological power of the surroundings is the first step in reclaiming agency. You basically have to control the environment to allow the parasympathetic nervous system a chance to activate.
You have to force the rest and digest.
Exactly. And the subsequent step is even more vital, which is outlined in angle 3, the victory in saying and no.
Oh, this is where it gets really interesting. Because society has incredibly rigid scripts around food refusal.
Very rigid.
Like at a family dinner table or a restaurant, turning down food is instantly framed as stubbornness or an insult to the host or just being, difficult.
Right, because food is love, food is connection.
Yeah.
So rejecting it is immediately seen as a social failing.
But this text entirely reclaims the word no. It elevates refusing food from a behavioral issue to a fundamental assertion of human rights.
It does. The manifesto demands profound respect for the individual's autonomy. It asserts the absolute right to reject what is, to their specific neurology, genuinely inedible.
Think about the sheer courage that takes.
Oh, it's massive.
After 27 years of being told your internal alarm system is broken, to look at a plate and finally say, my body is rejecting this and I will not apologize to make you comfortable.
Yeah, it's a massive reclamation of the self.
It's self-respect. You're validating your own biological reality. You're basically saying, I trust my body's firewall more than I care about social politeness.
Exactly. It turns pushing the plate away into an act of profound self-advocacy.
Okay, so if asserting boundaries and controlling the environment, like shutting off those awful overhead lights, are the defensive maneuvers, we have to look at the day-to-day reality of what happens when those walls are up. But calories still need to be consumed.
Right. And that brings us to angle 1 of the manifesto, which is titled Safety in Chaos.
Safety in chaos.
Yeah, and it introduces the stark, completely unapologetic visual identity of this entire project.
Which is fascinating.
It is. When your relationship with food is chaotic and the environment is inherently unpredictable, fiercely protecting whatever actually works for you becomes a daily necessity.
You find your safe harbor and you just anchor yourself to it.
Exactly. You protect what works without apologizing for it.
And the source material gives us incredibly vivid imagery of what this anchor looks like. It describes a top-down camera shot, but it's the exact opposite of what we're trained to expect from food media.
Right. There is no beautifully plated meal here.
No. There's no steam rising perfectly off a complex dish. It's a completely empty plate. Or maybe there's just an anchor on it, like a specific glass of water, or one particular brand of a nutritional drink that just happens to go down on a difficult day.
No garnish.
Zero garnish, no attempts to make it look pretty for the camera or for social media.
And the visual choices here are a deliberate rejection of the performance usually required of people with chronic conditions.
It's the ultimate anti-foodie aesthetic.
Oh, completely.
We live in this culture obsessed with hyper-edited, perfectly curated meals, right? We basically consume food visually before we ever taste it.
Yeah, social media demands everything look optimized and beautiful.
So in that context, posting a minimalist empty plate or just a plain glass of water is a radical act of honesty. It just completely strips away the pretending.
It announces, I am not going to dress up my survival to make society feel better.
Yes, that refusal to dress up survival.
And that honesty is actually the foundation of genuine community trust. Because when you mask the reality of ARFID and artificial aesthetics like, when you arrange a few safe foods to look like a quote-unquote normal meal.
Or pretend your intake is more varied than it is.
Exactly. When you do that, you're participating in that forced optimism we unpacked earlier.
You're playing the medical system's game.
Right. You're pretending to be closer to cured.
Yeah.
But showing the empty plate tells the undeniable, unvarnished truth about hitting that biological firewall.
It's visual proof of the endurance. It proves that you are still here, even if all you could manage today was the anger.
Yeah, it really does.
And all of these elements, rebelling against the clinical push for progress, setting hard boundaries against social pressure, controlling the sensory environment, embracing these honest visuals, they all build toward the definitive core of the manifesto.
The culmination of the project.
Yeah.
The fifth angle.
Raw validation.
Yes. The text makes it explicitly clear that this is the end point where the individual takes total ownership of their body, their history, and their narrative.
The core thesis of the fifth angle, and this is translated directly from the text, is a simple sentence that completely stops you in your tracks.
Let's hear it.
Survival is a victory in itself.
Wow.
Right, just getting up every single day in a system that fundamentally misunderstands your biology, a system that pressures you to override your instincts and exhausts you with endless demands for growth.
Enduring that isn't a tragic state of brokenness.
Not at all. It is a massive, towering achievement.
It requires a complete reorientation of how we define success, honestly.
Because we're so conditioned to view success as this upward trajectory, right?
Oh, totally. Overcoming obstacles, beating the disease, emerging transformed. But the fifth angle rejects the necessity of transformation.
Which is so freeing.
It is. If we look at the ultimate goal of the content channel this manifesto describes, its brilliance actually lies in what it does not do.
Tell me more about that.
The goal is to create a space that does not traumatize the viewer, because it demands absolutely nothing of them.
Which is unheard of. Finding a space on the modern internet that demands nothing of you is almost impossible.
It really is.
The entire digital landscape is an optimization engine. We're constantly bombarded by voices telling us to, buy this supplement, try this biohack, wake up at 4 a.m.
Optimize your gut health.
Exactly. Be better, be faster. The wellness internet demands relentless self-improvement.
Right. The traditional clinical space demands measurable progress, and the wellness internet demands optimization.
But the space created by the reality of 27 years...
It simply offers what the author calls identification without pressure.
Identification without pressure? You just see yourself reflected back, and no one asks you to change a single thing about how you exist.
Right. You film the empty plate. You use your voice to protect your internal system. And you just exist in that truth.
Just existing is enough.
Exactly. By telling the unvarnished reality about the biological firewall, you instantly validate everyone else who has been quietly hitting that exact same wall in isolation.
It totally removes the shame of not getting quote-unquote better.
And replaces it with this shared solidarity of simply enduring.
So if you, the listener, have never heard of ARFID before today, or if you've never experienced the kind of sensory overload that makes a buzzing light bulb feel like a physical threat, looking at these sources completely rewires how you view empathy.
It really does. It's a huge perspective shift.
Offering someone a space where they don't have to grow or overcome their daily reality for our comfort, where just surviving is celebrated as more than enough, is incredibly powerful.
It forces us to examine how we treat every single person in our lives who is managing an invisible burden.
Yeah, it challenges the core assumption that our role is to fix the people around us.
Right. It suggests that true support is not about providing a roadmap out of the condition, but about validating the sheer amount of energy it takes to live inside it.
Absolutely. When you look at this manifesto in its entirety, from understanding the biology of a sensory shutdown to the courage it takes to say no at the dinner table.
To the radical honesty of filming an empty plate.
Yes. It is a masterclass in drawing a boundary against a world that demands compliance. We so often rush to offer solutions because someone else's visible struggle makes us uncomfortable.
We really do. We want the X-ray, the cast, and the cure.
But the heaviest burdens are always the ones that cast no shadow. If simply surviving in a world not built for your neurology is a massive achievement, consider the other invisible firewalls the people around you might be hitting every single day. What would happen if, instead of offering them our uninvited optimism and our endless advice for how they can fix themselves, we just offer them a completely empty plate of raw validation? Keep questioning the systems, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.